Okay, so if you live in the U.S. Northeast, you already know this, but if you live elsewhere, um, basically my home track, Radio Control Hobbies and Raceway, is now closed. Um, it's through no fault of their own, I should point out. It's not like other tracks where they had to shut down for business reasons, they didn't have enough people racing or anything like that. It's much simpler. It's the landlord that was leasing out the space to the track has decided to use the land for other purposes. And so they're evicting everybody using their land so the guy can like tear the building down and just do something else. So really sucks. Figured I would talk a little bit about my experiences with RCHR and I guess kind of a tribute to them, and also sort of what the situation is. So I guess we'll start with the situation. So I described they can no longer race. Basically, in the last 2 to 2.5 weeks, they wanted to go out with a bang, so they had a whole lot of races and a really big race on Sunday. And I wanted to go to at least one of those races with my son, just to show my support because I've been a patron of that track for since 2011, I think, really long time. So problem was I had it was during the holiday break. I had all kinds of other like family commitments and vacation commitments, so I couldn't go. Uh, but they're not gone forever. Basically, they're going to change their location. The owner will found a new spot where, at least for the hobby shop, it should produce more traffic and he should get higher sales. So that's great. That'll mean that the shop itself is more sustainable. The only problem is, for that particular location, it's not big enough for him to build a 110 scale track. Right? All right. So, maybe they'll figure something out in the future, but for now, they're just going to focus on sales. Um, that doesn't mean that I don't have anywhere else to race, though. There's still plenty of places for me to go racing, so I'm not worried about, this wonderful collection of cars going to waste. Um, but it really is unfortunate that that specific track shut down because anytime I wanted to just get some track time in, to bring my son to go for open practice, make some videos of some of the cars I have, I would usually do it at RCHR. And a lot of my vintage material where I was developing cars, especially earlier on when they had their dirt track, and I would sort of test my cars out and develop setups, that was at that track. So I won't be able to do that quite as readily anymore. Now, granted, these are all dirt cars. I have some AstroTurf cars, and that's what they were running up until lately. So I'd have to go to a different AstroTurf track, which there is one, but it's a little further away. So again, like, I'm not, I can't not race, so I'm not worried about that. But that track was really convenient, and I've known those guys for a really long time, and we're all great friends. So it's just sad to see. So I started, once I finished college, I spent about a year just sort of like playing around with some different cars, and that was really early in my YouTube channel, I think. I had like, an HPI Cyber 10B, I bought a B4.1 factory team, and then eventually I got a B44, and it was at that point that I decided to try to start racing. First place I went to was Barnstormers, and this was in the winter. It might have been like December or January. I did one race there. I broke a bunch of stuff because I was brand new to racing. And I had an okay time there. It was fine. But then I found other tracks, and I said, okay, well, let me try these other tracks. So then I went to RCHR. At that time, John Benedict and Mark Westerfield owned and ran the track. And so I found myself enjoying it more there. That was more of like a track specifically made for 110 scale off-road, and the track designs were a bit more accommodating to newer racers. So because at Barnstormers, inside the barn in the indoor track, there's a lot of pillars there, so if you like jump the wrong way, you smack into a beam like this and just bash your car to bits. But at RCHR, they didn't have that, so it was much better for newer racers. So then I just got hooked there. Once I sort of found sort of the track that I liked the most, I just started going there more and more. And for about, I'd say maybe 2 years or so, 1 or 2 years, they had a really high attendance. And it was just the right combination of like the people and the timing. You know, there were enough people at that time who were making enough money and had enough time on their hands to go racing. And so they had a lot of dirt racing going on there, especially indoors. So that was a lot of fun. And then, you know, some people had kids, or some people maybe lost their job or whatever. And so the attendance started to wane a little bit around like 2013 or so. And it was also around that time or slightly before that I started experimenting with other tracks like Galamods or Walkit Hobbies or Cruising with RCs. But still, I generally went to RCHR like 90% of the time. Even if the turnout was low, even if we didn't have any racing going on that day, that was fine by me, because I can practice all day. They would open up at 10 o'clock on Saturdays. I'd show up at 10, and I'd practice all day through 5 o'clock. And then that's when we would start qualifying. We'd figure out, all right, is there enough people here to do any type of racing whatsoever? If not, then we would just have more practice. I'd practice until they closed the doors. You know, I'd pay a fee for practice, and that was that. So I got a whole lot of track time there, and that was a big part of how I became a good racer, was just a ton of practice at that track. And then, I can't remember the exact year, it might have been like 2014 or so, Will Blank bought the place from John Benedict. Mark had sort of, I forget exactly what happened, but he stopped, you know, he sold his share or whatever to John, so John ran the place by himself, and then Will came in to partner with him, and then eventually Will bought out the whole thing. So it was somewhere around, I think, 2014, 2015, thereabouts, where Will owned the whole place. So then he ran the shop, he ran the track, he had to do it all, and big credit to his wife for supporting him for that, by the way, because, you know, especially at that time, his kids were younger. He's got 2 sons. He's got a full-time job. He's, you know, a family guy. He's got a house and everything, and he's got to run this track and cater to racers who at times can be finicky, you know, petulant assholes. And he had to tolerate all of that while also running the hobby shop business, and it was really a lot to handle. And you could see, you know, on certain weekends it was taking a lot out of him. He was really stressed out for a while, but he did it because he loves it. So you know, it's very rare to find somebody who cares enough about the hobby and the hobbyists and the racers to want to give as much of themselves as he has to, you know, running a track and a hobby shop. So eventually, it was around 2015, dirt turnout was getting really low, and that was also when the dirt surfaces were getting higher and higher grip. So it was hard for RCHR to sort of compete with what else was going on in the area. And so, you know, they started doing things that other dirt tracks do toward the end of their dirt era, which is to put additives in the dirt to try to get more grip. And it kind of worked, but it, you know, it still produced some other problems. You know, we didn't get very consistent grip and so forth. And like, I didn't really care how much grip we had, but there were enough people who did to make it worth Will's effort to try to like make the dirt more appealing. But at the end of the day, that had to lose out to AstroTurf, because, you know, building a dirt track, doing new layouts, it takes a lot of time and energy to do that, and you have to shut the track down for a few weeks, in which case the track's not making money. So there's all this real estate you're using for the track is not generating income, because you got to let the dirt dry up so it can last, and then you got to do it all over again in another like 2 months or so. So it's a real pain. So we went to AstroTurf, and that was appropriately timed, because the 2015 IFMAR Worlds was on AstroTurf. You know, Cruising with RC went to AstroTurf. So the trend was trending toward higher grip and carpet and turf tracks. So they jumped onto that, and that really helped the track a lot. And that was also around the time where you know, my first child was born, so I had to stop racing for a while. But the track actually, recovered a lot in terms of attendance and just building a whole new base of racers to go there. And it was always nice to see the track doing well remotely, like on Facebook, because I couldn't attend. I had a baby to take care of. And then after enough time, my kids were old enough that I could start going back. And then I could sort of take the cars that I had before I had to stop racing, like, my Kyosho RB 6.6 and my RT6 and my Laser and some other like vintage stuff to play with, and put turf setups on those and go to the track and develop my turf setups a little more on my modern cars and play around with my vintage stuff a little bit. So I made some content for that, and occasionally got to attend a race or two. And then I also, did some on-road racing there. It was very rare because, again, I can only go there maybe once every 2 months or so because we have all kinds of other stuff to do on the weekends. But occasionally we go. And I did the endurance race. I wish I had footage of that. That was a lot of fun. But we did a 2.4-hour endurance race, which they had done every year when they started doing an on-road program in the summer. So I was there for like the last year of that, apparently, and had a lot of fun with that. So there's a lot of like good racing and just good times to be had there that can no longer be had because the track has to shut down. I also met a lot of fantastic people there. It's pointless to list them all out here, but you guys know who you are. But a few notables would be certainly Mark Westerfield, probably one of the like most intelligent racers I've ever met. Like, he really knows how to build a car, how to like anything on a car. He knows exactly how to make it look right, especially shocks. He's a magician with shocks. He understands racecraft. He understands a lot. There are so many racers that learned a buttload from Mark, and he was the one who kind of kept edging me towards the Losi XX4 for vintage racing, and we go back and forth on that a little bit. But it was always a pleasure to race with him and spend time with him. And, of course, Will and John and Alex K, who was, a local talent around here. When he was younger, he's now, in college and doing adult things. But he was a phenomenally fast driver. And, being around him let you know where you really stood. Because if you thought you were fast, he'd show up and kick your ass without even trying. So it was good to have that kind of depth of talent to learn from and be around. So yeah, I'm gonna miss all of that, but hopefully, I'll see these guys around at other races, at other tracks. We'll see what happens there. Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what the track means to me and how much I enjoyed spending time there. It is sad to see it go, but who knows, right? It doesn't mean that racing there is dead. There's, plenty of RCHR folks who will all see at other tracks. So, yeah, I don't know what else I want to say about it at this point. I did, a lot of learning about different cars, vintage cars, modern cars, meeting a lot of people. Were it not for the people I met there and the experiences I've had, I'd be a completely different person today. So I'm happy for what I've experienced there and what I've learned there. It has changed who I am as a person, and it definitely has amplified my RC experience. A lot of the vintage stuff that I have probably wouldn't be as motivated were it not for that track, because that's where I would go to play with my vintage cars and work on them to get them ready for the Vintage Off-Road Nationals. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of it. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there. Thank you, Will, for everything you've done for RCHR. I look forward to what your new shop has to offer, and hopefully we'll get to do some more racing in the future. All right. Thanks for watching.